My little nephew's about 3 or 4 years old at this time, and he's walking up and down the shore of Bass Lake with a bucket, a little red bucket with a yellow handle like you make sandcastles out of, and he's throwing it over his shoulder, and when it hits the water, he runs out and he grabs it and he yells, "I caught a fish, I caught a fish!" And of course, we and the people on the beach look at it, and there's no fish. And he does it again, and we run, and nothing. And it's fun for the 10th or 12th time, but by the 30th or 40th time, he's just throwing a bucket and yelling. Well, somewhere in the course of the afternoon, he throws the bucket and he starts screaming that he caught a fish, puts the bucket on the sand, starts screaming for everyone to come look. And one of the high school guys that were there, it was a youth camp, happened to look in his bucket and he yelled at everyone else, "Hey, he actually caught a fish." And sure enough, I don't know how, I don't know why, maybe God did it, or it was the slowest, dumbest bass in Bass Lake. Maybe the bucket just landed on this. It wasn't a minnow, it was an actual little bass, a little fingerling bass. And my nephew grabbed it in the palm of his hand and squeezed it. Little mouth on this side, little tail flipping on this side, and he started to run with it. My brother caught him and said, "Caleb, he's got to stay in the water. You got to put him in the water. Take the bucket or he's going to die." "No, Dad, no one's going to believe me." And he started running. He ran to the picnic tables. He ran to the volleyball courts. He ran to where the dinner is being prepped. He showed every kid in the youth group that he actually caught a fish, just like he's been screaming all day. And of course, you know what happens. About 20, 25 minutes later, he's back on the beach. He's holding his hand open now, and he's splashing it with water. And my brother knows exactly what's happened, so he goes down and tries to console him as best as he can. But before my brother can say anything, Caleb looked up, and he goes, "Dad, make it swim." And my brother said, "What?" He's all, "Dad, make it swim." And he's all, "Honey, I don't think he's going to swim anymore." "Yeah, Dad, you can fix anything. Make it swim." And my brother got down on one knee and said, "Caleb, if I make him swim again, he's going to have to go free. We can't hold him. We can't keep him. Is that a deal?" And Caleb nodded his head. And my brother took the fish, and this is a true story. He looked at it, and he took a deep breath, and he blew into the mouth of that fish. And then with all of his might, he threw it out in the lake as far as he could, and it made a splash. And my nephew's all, "Hey!" And my brother said, "Did you see it jump? I told you, it had to swim, and it had to swim away." My nephew looked out, looked at his dad, looked out, picked up his bucket, and he kept fishing. On the way back up to camp, my brother told the high schoolers, "If that fish floats up on shore, you guys get rid of it for me, okay?" And I thought it was brilliant. But I thought it's exactly what we've been studying in the Holy Spirit. God has given us the gift of the Holy Spirit, and we have sucked the life out of it. We have strangled it. I think for so many Christians, we're running around with something that should be alive, and yet it's just dead, and we're wondering, how do I make this swim? Romans chapter 8 comes in the midst of, and by the way, we're going to be hitting this in the series in the book of Acts. Don't just be surprised if you hear that illustration or this again. You're just daily dosers. You're on the inside club. In chapter 7, Paul has been writing. We left off chapter 5 yesterday. If you've been saved by Jesus' death, how much more are you saved by his life? Oh, if you think you're a Christian because Jesus died on the cross, how much more is your Christianity going to make sense when you understand he rose for you and lives in you? And now we get to chapter 7. It goes, then why is there conflict? Why is there confusion? Why am I battling my own sin issues? And why does Christian life bring me so much guilt and shame? And Paul says, let me tell you, you've taken the fish out of the water. In Romans chapter 8, we're going to pick it up in verse 5. He said, those who live according to the sinful nature are going to have your mind set on what that nature desires. But those who live in accordance with the Holy Spirit are going to have their mind set on what the Spirit desires. The mind of the sinful man is death, but the mind controlled by the Spirit is life and peace. The sinful mind is going to be hostile toward God. It doesn't submit to God's law, nor can it even do so. But those controlled by the sinful nature cannot please God. You, however, Christian, are controlled not by your sin nature, but by the Spirit, if the Spirit of God lives in you. And if anyone does not have the Spirit of Christ, he does not belong to Christ. But if Christ is in you, your body is dead because of sin, yet your spirit is alive because of righteousness. He says, let me tell you what's happening. You got the Spirit of God in your life, but you're not walking in obedience. Your mind's still based on the flesh. You're going opposite of God. Your relationship's opposite of God. Your finances are opposite of God. Your desires are opposite of God. You poured the obedience, you poured the water out of your life, and so the Spirit's dead. The Spirit's not swimming. The Spirit's not moving. However, if you want to set your mind according to the things of God, if you want to set your mind according to be controlled by the Spirit, he goes, that's all the Spirit needs. That's all the flow of water the Spirit needs to start swimming upstream in your life, to come back and be a life and obedience and guide and direct you. I said it this weekend. The Holy Spirit will not work against his purpose in your life. If your purpose is to fulfill yourself, your desires, and not God, we may have the Holy Spirit, but it's dead. It needs to be breathed into. Obedience, a vessel of obedience, is what the Spirit swims in. More on that tomorrow.